The first thing people noticed in the viral clip wasn't the millionaire's tailored suit or the trembling in his hands. It was the small boy's voice, clear and fearless in the quiet park. "Don't cry, mister. You can borrow my mom." In the video, the man's shoulders shook as if he'd been struck by lightning, and for a moment, power, money, and status meant nothing at all. Ethan Carter, CEO of one of the fastest growing tech firms in the country, had not planned to be in that park. He had stormed out of another glass-walled meeting room where everyone spoke in numbers and expectations and nobody spoke in truths. His company's latest product had failed catastrophically. Billions were on the line. Shareholders were circling. News outlets were sharpening headlines. But none of that compared to the quiet devastation of the voicemail he had received just minutes before. His wife was done. She was taking the daughter and leaving. "You're married to your company," she had said. "I'm tired of competing with it." So Ethan sat on a weathered park bench, jaw clenched, tears sliding down his face, unnoticed by a world that only ever saw him as untouchable. Except he was noticed. Noah was 7 years old, small for his age, with grass-stained sneakers and a superhero backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. He had been kicking a rock down the path, pretending it was a race car, when he saw the man crying. Grown-ups weren't supposed to cry like that. Grown-ups cried quietly in bathrooms or behind bedroom doors. This man was crying like a hurt child. Noah stopped, watched for a moment, then approached with the kind of bravery only children possess. That was when he said the words that would change everything. Ethan looked up, embarrassed, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "Borrow your mom," he echoed, confused. Noah nodded seriously. "She's really good at making people feel better. And she makes hot chocolate even when it's not cold." Ethan let out a broken laugh that turned into another sob. He hadn't laughed in weeks. "That sounds incredible." Noah climbed onto the bench beside him without invitation. "You look like you need it more than me right now." From a distance, Mia watched, panic rising in her chest as she realized her son was talking to a stranger. She rushed over, apologizing profusely, but Ethan assured her it was fine. They sat together awkwardly at first, Mia guarded, Ethan humbled, Noah swinging his legs between them like nothing extraordinary was happening. Hot chocolate was mentioned again, and somehow, through the strangest series of unplanned choices, they ended up at a small cafe across the street. Over lukewarm drinks and crumbs of pastries, Ethan shared more than he had with anyone in years. He spoke of pressure that never slept, of expectations that crushed, of a life spent chasing success that kept moving the finish line. Mia listened without judgment. She wasn't impressed by his title. She was impressed by his honesty. She shared her own struggles. Raising Noah alone after her husband's death, juggling 2 jobs, the constant fear of never quite catching up. 2 lives from opposite ends of the world, colliding over hot chocolate and grief. Challenges didn't vanish after that meeting. In fact, they intensified. The next week, Ethan's company faced its biggest legal battle yet. Investors threatened to pull out. The media turned ruthless. At the same time, he received confirmation that his wife's decision was final. He returned to his penthouse each night to silence so loud it rang in his ears. He thought of Noah's simple kindness, of Mia's steady presence, and it felt unreal compared to the storm he lived in. Mia, on the other hand, struggled with the sudden awareness that the man she and Noah had befriended lived in a world that could swallow her whole. She feared attachment. She feared disappointment. And yet, Noah asked about the crying mister every day. Sometimes Ethan showed up at the park again, trying to blend in, sitting on the same bench. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes Noah would just sit with him and do homework in quiet companionship. It became their fragile routine. Then the truth came out. A parent at Noah's school recognized Ethan from the news. Within hours, rumors spread. By evening, Mia's phone was flooded with messages, some curious, some cruel. "What do you want from him? Careful, people like that don't help without a price." Fear took root in her chest. When Ethan came to the park that weekend, she didn't bring Noah. She stood alone and told him, voice shaking, that this couldn't continue. Their worlds were too different. She didn't want her son hurt by becoming attached to someone who might disappear without warning. That rejection hit Ethan harder than any boardroom defeat. For the first time, he wasn't losing money, he was losing connection. He respected her decision and stepped back, but the absence left a hollow ache. Weeks passed. His company survived the crisis after brutal restructuring. He cut projects, laid off teams, made choices that saved the business but weighed heavily on his conscience. Success tasted bitter. One rainy afternoon, his assistant handed him a small envelope addressed in a child's handwriting. Inside was a drawing, a stick figure man on a bench with a tear, and a little boy holding his hand. Beneath it, in crooked letters, were the words, "You can still borrow my mom if you're sad." Noah. Something inside Ethan fractured open. He left the office early that day and went straight to the park. MIA was there, sitting alone under an umbrella. Noah had the flu and was home with a neighbor. The rain mirrored the heavy silence between them. Ethan spoke first. He apologized, not for being who he was, but for not understanding her fear. He told her about the layoffs, the guilt, the cost of choices people never see behind success. MIA confessed how terrified she was of letting someone new into Noah's life, how loss had taught her to expect disappearance. They cried, not as CEO and single mother, but as two wounded humans trying to protect what mattered most. Their challenges didn't resolve in a single conversation. Trust took time. Ethan learned how to show up without money as a shield. He helped with homework instead of writing checks. He attended school plays quietly in the back row. MIA learned that protection didn't always mean isolation. Sometimes it meant allowing love despite the risk. The real test came when Noah's condition worsened unexpectedly. A routine flu turned into severe pneumonia. Hospital bills stacked up faster than MIA could breathe through them. Pride nearly stopped her from calling Ethan. Nearly. But fear for her son was stronger. Ethan arrived at the hospital within minutes of the call. Not with promises, but with presence. He stayed through the night, holding Noah's small hand when his breathing became labored, whispering stories about superheroes who always came back from the brink. When Noah finally stabilized, it felt like the world exhaled. In the quiet of the hospital hallway, MIA broke down, thanking Ethan through sobs. He shook his head. "You didn't borrow me," he said softly. "I chose to stay." Months passed. The viral video had long faded from headlines, but its impact lived on quietly. Ethan restructured his company with different values. Fewer endless hours. More focus on people, not just profits. MIA returned to school part-time, chasing dreams she had buried beneath survival. Noah recovered fully and remained the fearless bridge between worlds. One evening, as the three of them sat on the same old park bench watching the sun dip low, Noah leaned back and smiled. "See, I told you my mom makes people feel better." Ethan laughed, but his eyes glistened. He was no longer the man who cried alone in public. He was still powerful, still driven, but now, anchored. Not by fear of loss, but by gratitude for connection. Sometimes, the smallest voices interrupt the loudest storms. Sometimes, a borrowed moment becomes a permanent change. And sometimes, what saves a broken man isn't money, success, or control, but a child brave enough to offer him a cup of borrowed hope.